Hi, welcome to Jim Henson, Imagination Unlimited, and this is the exhibition that really focuses on the entirety of Jim Henson's creative career. I'm Bill Conger, Chief Curator at Peoria Riverfront Museum.
And I'm Renae Kerrigan, Curator of Science at the Peoria Riverfront Museum. And we'd like to take a look at this fantastic exhibition we've been having fun sharing with our guests here in Central Illinois.
So you walk into the first room, Renae, and you're surrounded by early Jim Henson I didn't realize so much of his background was in fine art, illustration and art in general.
Jim Henson knew that he wanted to work in the visual arts and especially in television, but he wasn't exactly sure how his path would lead him there. So he tried out a lot of different things, as great artists do. And early on in his career, he took a workshop on puppet making and fell in love with the puppetry arts. So right here at the beginning of the exhibition is the most beloved Muppet of all time, Kermit the Frog. I think there's a little bit of Kermit in all of us, and you can see him here in this exhibition. The original Kermit was actually cut from a green felt coat, which I believe was Jim Henson's mother's green felt coat to make Kermit the Frog.
You know, I really thought Kermit would have been a later invention of Jim Henson's, but he actually shows up in the 1950s.
That's right, from the very beginning. If you want to try your hand at puppetry, you can actually do so in this exhibition. There's some simple puppets and the camera setup. So anyone of all ages, we've seen people, little people all the way up to grandparents in here, seeing how hard it is to view yourself on the screen and operate a puppet, which is how all the people who are performing these puppets on Sesame Street and the Muppet Show had to do. But the Jim Henson Company actually didn't start off with those super famous products like the Muppet Show. It started in commercials.
So some of these early commercials are quite bawdy. They're actually violent and very human. And I think one of the coolest things about Henson's creations early on, and you can see in here, how he's creating a new type of puppetry that really lets the puppets have facial inflections and emotional qualities that I think had not existed prior.
And some of the early characters that you're probably familiar with, if you're familiar with the Muppet Show or the Muppets in general, came from these commercials like Ralph the dog, who was in early Henson commercials, and then he showed up on Saturday Night Live.
His head was made from a basketball, right?
I think that's right, made from half of a basketball. So the commercials were paying the bills, but Jim Henson, he was an artist, as Bill said, and so he was always experimenting. He was always trying to create new types of art, and you can see some great examples of that in this exhibition. He made experimental films like Timepiece and The Cube. He was also interested in planning a nightclub in New York City. And while you're looking at that at the museum here, you can also try your hand at another little puppet show or read some books about Jim Henson or puppetry art. So there's lots of interactives throughout this exhibition.
I think the coolest part about this section is you can see the influence of psychedelic culture in his films and in the different approaches that he's taking to media.
And then it moves right from this idea of maybe he'll make experimental films, maybe he'll run a nightclub, to Sesame Street, which is probably a bit of discordant idea in a lot of people's minds, but it's Jim Henson. He had a mind full of ideas and imagination. So started creating Muppets for Sesame Street. And of course, so many people grew up with Sesame Street. I did. My favorites are here in the show, Bert and Ernie.
Classics.
Yeah, they just are, and there's so much emotion that the puppeteers and Jim could put into his Muppets. And you can kind of see that in this exhibition here. And you also can see how difficult it would have been to perform these pieces. It actually took 3 people to perform Bert and Ernie together. Jim was Ernie, so one of his hands was doing Ernie's hand, one of his hands was doing Ernie's mouth, and they needed a 3rd person to do Ernie's left hand. And so people had to really be friendly to operate these puppets. They had to get down into small places and cram close together. You also have a chance when you're viewing this exhibition to make an anything Muppet, and you can take the base of the Muppet, switch out some accessories, and then you have a whole new creature, which was something that the Henson Company did all the time.
It's great. So then you move into actually the Muppets from the Muppet Show era, which is a little later and a little more sophisticated than Sesame Street. But I think he really explores new avenues of caricatures in this time frame. And there is sensory all around us.
Right.
There's an entire wall of every Muppet Show ever produced playing at one interval, which I think is
incredible.
Absolutely wild. And then in our exhibition, we're the only exhibition to have with the show the original Manamana puppets. And you know the song. You can hear it in your head, Manamana.
And the Snoots. And a lot of people connect with Beaker and Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, who are also here. And they look so lifelike even now. You can also probably hear Beaker's voice in your head
fun.
when you look at those Muppets. And the great contrast between Sesame Street and the Muppet Show is the audiences. Sesame Street, the Muppets were intended for children. And then with the Muppet Show and with most of Jim Henson's work, the Muppets were intended for adults. And that was also kind of revolutionary in a lot of ways.
Which leads us into the final area of the exhibition where he really explores different types of film. And really some of the earliest, I think, approaches to CGI, even though the stuff is really not very CGI. A lot of this was actually sculpted and created and contoured and invented. There is a fantastical point in his career with Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, some of these films that shared a lot with Star Wars and a lot of the sci-fi things that were happening at the same time.
He had so many ideas in his head all the time. He was just working his whole career to unleash his and his viewers' imaginations, which we hope this exhibition can help everyone do as they come visit it here at the Peoria Riverfront Museum. So thank you to our sponsors. This exhibition is presented by PNC and sponsored by the Gilmore Foundation and OSF Healthcare. We're grateful for their support.